Hey everyone, my name is Daniel, an indie game dev working on a game called Osore for 6 months now. Osore is a shoot 'em up roguelike game with a nice little story which I will write later in development. But this video here isn't a usual devlog as I do every now and then for Osore, in which I talk about the progress I made. Today I will do a little rewind and go back in time to see how I came as far as I currently am with Osore. So let's start and go back to the 8th of April 2021, the day I made the first ever sketch for Osore. Before I had the idea of the game I'm currently working on, I actually sketched out many different ideas. Many of them were in the roguelike genre, and I actually really wanted to work with this genre, and I really won't regret it. As you can see here, the first sketch that looks similar to Osore has a completely different gameplay. It used to be a classic top-down shooter, but because there are thousands and thousands of them, and a simple top-down shooter wouldn't be outstanding enough for me, in this second sketch you already see that I switched from the top-down shooter to a shoot-'em-up style game. Fun fact, the spell mechanic, which are special action pickups, were there from the first ever sketch. One thing I changed now of the sketch here is that you play an area in one row, as it would be a single level. But later when making the game, I changed this to separate levels that build an area. After this brainstorming of what game I actually want to create, I prototyped the core systems of the game. I sadly haven't gotten any really early footage where the player was just a circle with two more circles as eyes and the sparse yellow circles as well. But I got the footage where there were some placeholder graphics as well. Comparing it to what it is now, it's actually unbelievable that it's the same game, only with a bit less than 6 months work time in between. I also added controller support using the rewired asset from the Unity asset store. I came up with the very first enemies for the first area, which are the monster bat, the spiky creature, the dark storyteller and the third enemy. Besides the enemies, I also made some spells which you still can find mostly in the first area of the game. Around this time I asked my friend and music composer Chris Kohler if he could create the music for Osore, and he agreed. Chris created 4 tracks for Osore so far: the main theme of the first area, the boss fight music for the first area, the main theme of the second area, and the boss track for the second area. Back in the past I also made dark levels where the player has less vision, but with some nice feedback from some people I actually removed the dark levels, because you already don't have so much reaction time in Osore, and decreasing it would make it so much more harder. But what I actually focused on the 3 weeks after the first video about Osore here on YouTube was the game's polish. I really cared about the graphics and even a bit of audio there. I added post-processing and good visual feedback for the things the player does. But other than that I also made a ton of other small additions. If you want to watch a more detailed version of how I made Osore polished, you can check out the second devlog of Osore. I also made a pause menu in these 3 weeks and came up with the title Osore. Another 3 weeks began, where I made the first 2 bosses for the game. One called Gluche and the other one Flower. Both of them are for the first area called Blossom Skies. The next 3 weeks after this devlog I made the base form for the second and third area and their basic enemies. I still need to add more content, but this will happen soon. Later then I created the 4th area called Ominous Hollow with the brand new obstacles, as well as 2 new bosses which are Aragos and Murpher. That's also where I cut it off the 4th level for each area and made the levels themselves shorter as well. I did this to make a run shorter because before it took way too long to complete one. Now a single run lasts about 30 minutes, which is a pretty nice length for a roguelike run. It allows you to play a bit more often because you don't need to bring 2 or 3 hours to be able to play one run. Next I was working on content. I added new enemies and spells, and now you have 20 spells in the game at the moment. I also created 2 new bosses, which are the Dreamer of Doom and Howler this time. With that I created 6 bosses in total, 2 per each area except the last one. but I'm actually planning to create one more boss for each of the first 3 areas sometime in the future. For the last area there's the final boss, which I'm working on at the moment. It's planned to have 5 stages, so this will take a bit more time than creating usual bosses. Last month I created a nice in-game tutorial, a main menu, a title screen, shortcuts to the different areas, some little improvements and 13 different upgrades for the player to buy in the game. These are something like casting a protective field around the player when he gets hurt, or a discount that applies to every upgrade in the shop. For the future of Osore I'm planning to add more content, of course, which is more or less the only thing left to do. The content will mainly be enemies and the extra bosses I want to make. Another thing left to do is to write a complete story for Osore. Then I need to add all the missing audio work, which is a lot. Lastly, I need to optimize the game's code, balancing and more. And that's actually all. This definitely has been a crazy and awesome journey so far, and I'm just as excited about the game as I was at the beginning of my Osore journey. If you want to watch a more detailed version of this video, you can watch the devlogs for Osore here on YouTube. There are 7 devlogs and you can maybe learn something from it or just get some inspiration. If you want to see how this journey of Osore continues, I'd highly appreciate if you subscribe to the channel and hit that nice little bell to get notified when a new video releases. I also have Twitter, so if you want to get a bit more content from me, you can get it right there. Especially now when Inktober is going on, you can look at my drawings there. Hope you enjoyed this video and see you next time. Cheers!